In this episode, we're making a metal side cover. This guy right here. Alright, so the seat is done finally, and so our next big move here is this little panel section right in here. There are two little rubber grommets that I need to take off the old tank, transfer onto here, and basically our attachment points are those two rubber grommets. The little prong, I need to make something that has prongs that go into there, and then bolts on back here. And then the little panel will encompass this section right in here. That's what we need to work on today. That's what we're doing today. All right, so here are our little rubber grommets. I'm gonna go ahead, pop those in here. All right, and then as I often like to do, I'm just gonna go crazy with some tape, and I'm gonna make my template out of tape. All right, we got enough tape. Now the next step is to get in here and sort of mark where this stuff is. I want it to fall within this frame tube right here. All right, so now I'm gonna want to go ahead and cut this out. All right, so I've got some 16 gauge sheet metal right here. I'm gonna put my template on it, trace that out, and cut it out. All right, now I've got my marker. Go ahead, trace this out. And you'll notice that I'm tracing it in successive sessions here, and each time I trace it, it gets a little bit bigger. And I'm okay with that because I'd like to have a little bit more to work with. All right, look at that. Efficient use of metal. This is for the other side of the bike, obviously. Lightning bolt! There's an ice storm going on out there. It's like sleeting ice. All right, so here we are. We got our panel roughly, very roughly cut out. And now if we come over here and try and put it on here, start to see where it needs to bend at least. We definitely need to bend. And we definitely need to refine these corners. Probably should have picked slightly thinner metal, like 18 or 20 gauge, because then I could just go bleep. Instead I might have to use my knee. Even then, it's questionable. All right, let's take it to the bender machine. All right, so I'm just gonna take it to the edge of the table here, basically, and do a little bit of this. A little bit. All right, it's a little bit more like it, dude. Holy crap, that's not bad. I thought it would be more bends than that, but that's getting kind of close. Let's clean up some of these edges a little bit. All right, so I just cleaned up some of the rough edges here, the sharp edges, so hopefully I will be less likely to stab myself or like the seat here. And I'm gonna start fitting it up over here. Might start down here because this is already pretty close. Straighten this out here, and I can come through here, and then I need to finagle that. And this stuff up here needs to come down quite a bit by the looks of it. So at this point, I'm doing a lot of things just by feel. I'm repeatedly putting it on the bike, seeing what needs to be adjusted, taking it off the bike, making adjustments by grinding or removing bits of material here and there, making bends here and there, and then putting it back on the bike, seeing where I'm at again, and then repeating the process. There we are. I think it's going to look basically like that. Not entirely sure about it at this point. All right, so now that I've got this shape the way I want it, my next step is to figure out how to make the little prongs to go into these holes right here. Where do those go on this shape? And so what I'm doing here is figuring out where this sits. I can kind of look down and see the one here. I've marked it right here, and then I've marked it back on the tank, approximately where this top is. And then measure down from that mark to the center of my hole there. No, it's like 7/8. It's like 7/8 of an inch down from there. So I'm gonna measure down 7/8 of an inch and then mark it right there. And that's my mark for that one hole. And then from there, I'll go back up here, and now I'll measure from this hole, from the center of this hole to the center of the other hole, and it's about 4.5 inches over to this one. The distance between these two is 4.5 inches. Now I sort of do the same thing. I've got this on here the way I want it. Where does it hit over here? I'm gonna try and mark that. And then measure down from there to my hole and mark on here. First I've got my 4.5 inches. So that puts me over in here somewhere. And then I measure, I make a mark there. I come from my other mark, come over 4.5 inches. So I want to be like right here. So those 2 points there, that'll drill me through to the other side. Then I'll know where they are on the other side, where the center is, and then I'll make my little guide pins and weld them directly in the center on that hole back here. All right, to craft the little pegs that go in here, I've determined partly through magic and partly through rigorous testing that if I take 2 1/4-inch rods, they will fit in there fairly nicely. I'm gonna weld these two together. I find the vise a fun place to weld things. And then grinding it flat on the belt sander. And then here are 2 freshly welded tabs. And now I'm drilling out those marks we made earlier to have little guide holes so I can see on the other side where to weld our new tabs. I've ground down the metal on the side cover to prep it for welding. And here I'm using a magnet and some square tubing and some vise clamps to basically make a straight line all the way across the side cover so that these tabs will be straight with each other going across the side cover. I'm using a straight edge to draw a line from the little drilled hole so that I can see exactly where the middle is even while I have the tab over that hole. And then clamping the tabs to the square tubing. And now I'm going to go ahead and weld those on. Alright, so I've fully welded these things up. Well, not fully, but I welded them on both sides here. They're plenty strong at this point for this application. And then on the back side, you can see where the weld has come through on the back side here. And also I've gone ahead and filled those little tiny sort of guide holes that we created earlier. So now I need to go ahead and grind this stuff down so it's nice and flat. Alright, so I'm at the point now where I've got this guy, the little tabs on there. This fits into there real nicely. But now we've got to figure out back here, we've got our little screws, one there and one there. In order to figure out those and where to drill the holes on this guy, where everything lines up, I'm again going to use a little template. I'm going to try and put a template on here and reference like a point up here or so that I can actually see when this thing is on there. So if we do that, put that on there, I'm going to make a couple marks on here. Alright, so now I'm making a template for the mounting holes for the side cover. I first started out making a tape template for the holes and then transferring that template onto a cardboard template. And really, I could have just skipped the tape template altogether and started with the cardboard template. Made my holes onto the cardboard template. And I also, in order to make this whole thing work, I made 3 reference marks at different points on the frame. And I transferred those reference marks onto the template, and then I'm able to put the side cover onto the bike, move the template, and then align those 3 marks. Now I know where the holes are on the front of the side cover. I mark those holes and then I can drill them out. Well, I can see daylight through that one.
Find out, pretty close.
You can see daylight through that one too. I'll drill those out bigger and see if we can fit some bolts in there. Alright, so back to it now. We've got our little holes drilled in here. I've had to make a change on this because the stock bolt that comes with this guy, I realized that this one has a little shoulder on it which accommodates the plastics and whatnot that go on here naturally in its natural state in a stock form. And that shoulder thing is just going to create all kinds of issues for me with this because the metal that I'm using for my side cover now is thinner than that shoulder, and so if I were to drill it out for that shoulder diameter, this thing would just rattle around on here. We don't want that. Nobody wants rattles. So I'm going to swap it out for just a different bolt. Basically, at the moment, this is what I got. It's like a little 6mm thread on here, so this should work, and it will allow me to tighten this down all the way, which is what we want. That's what we're going for at the moment. So at a later date, I'll have to go and try and get hardware that matches so I'm fancy, you know. The other stock bolt right here does not have such a shoulder, so I could use this one. And this one's nice because it's stainless, so it's a little bit classier than that one up there. Imagine 2 matching bolts there, and it's not bad, not too bad. Alright, so at this point, this thing's pretty much done, the meat of it. The construction part is done. I'm going to go through and clean up the edges a little bit more with a hand file, smooth everything out, make it a little bit neater. So on the other side, we've got the 2 tabs here that we did, and then I've also got a little spacer on the back side of this guy as well. You can kind of see that guy right there. And so that guy helps to space off this thing here, because this one it's set back a little bit from this actual plate where the plate sits on the bike. So that's partly because of, well, just the way it is. And so I put that spacer there so that this thing will line up and I can tighten that down and it will be nice and neat on there. But at this point, that's basically how it's gonna be. But yeah, something like that is how it will look. So that is a hoopty doodle adventure in side cover fabrication. It wandered there a little bit as I figured things out, but I think it worked out pretty well. Now I'll try and match it as best I can for the cover on the other side of the bike. And then in the next episode, I hope to work on the headlight bracket. So we'll see you then. Thanks for watching, and keep on wrenching, everybody.